Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Exactly 17 minutes past 8 o'clock on the 23rd of September 2022. And it is so sad that once again we are right here talking about the drought situation in the country. At least by October, which is 7 days from now, it is estimated that at least 4.35 million people will be in dire need of humanitarian assistance, talking about medical, talking about shelter, talking about food, talking about nutrition, to mention but a few. My name is Faisal Kassim and welcome to the live Real Talk, where tonight we'll be talking about drought, and thus the topic, drought, until when? But again, before we dig deep into the conversation with my amazing panelists tonight, allow me to take you all the way to the New York City, where the president yesterday addressed the world, actually in his maiden speech as the elected president of the Republic of Kenya. Aban, take it away.
In the Horn of Africa region, severe drought and disruption of supply chains due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the Russia-Ukraine conflict, have left us food insecure, and consequently, we have been constrained to repurpose our strategies to prioritize drought and famine relief, insulating education and disruption, and improving social protection and healthcare systems to secure the well-being of our people. Many countries now bear witness to the unsettling phenomena of rivers, canals, and water reservoirs that are drying up on account of drought and heat waves occasioned by climate change. Kenya is no exception. The northern arid and semi-arid rangelands of our country have been gravely impacted by drought, whose severity has not been seen or experienced in 40 years. 3.1 million residents of these ASALs are now severely food insecure on account of scarce rainfall over 3 consecutive seasons, leading to poor crop and pasture. This unprecedented confluence of intensely adverse events has exacerbated water scarcity and starvation, worsened by rising food prices, thus complicating Kenya's roadmap towards delivering good quality of life to our citizens and hindering the progress to achieving SDG number 6 and SDG number 2. Severe drought has affected not only the Horn of Africa and the Sahel regions, but continues to devastate many others, including Asia, Europe, and the Americas. If for no other reason, the fact that we all are in this together must strengthen the case for concerted efforts across continents. With this in mind, I call on member states and all relevant stakeholders to demonstrate strong political will and showcase effective cooperation by supporting the most affected countries financially, as well as through sharing land restoration and climate change adaptation technologies. It is through collaboration to expand inclusion that we can attain a new paradigm in multilateralism. The latest report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reminds us that we cannot afford to waste another moment debating the merits of doing something vis-a-vis doing nothing.
Thanks so much, Aban Shehemi, for that sound or video clip by His Excellency the President yesterday during the United Nations General Assembly. And in studio, I'm joined by amazing panelists. That is Honorable Member for Mandera South, Honorable Abdulawahab. Haro. Congratulations, Mheshimiwa. I never told you that.
A pleasure. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. And thank you so much for making time for us.
Thank you very much.
Unafanya induction saizi ni kama form 1 wakiingia skuli wanafanyiwa
na asante kwa kunipa fursa hii pia kwa kwenye studio.
Yes, but the president at least protected you. Alisema the first new member should not be monolized. Yeah? Karibu sana. Thanks so much. We are honored and privileged for you to make time for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate.
Bwana Peter Murgor. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
Uko salama?
Nashukuru.
Karibu sana, and it's an honor to have you.
Thank you too for having us.
From the Kenya Red Cross Society.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks so much. Guys, both of you have been on the ground. Mheshimiwa Abdulawahab, I mean, before your election, before you wore a political hat, you were an active member in the NGO sector, and you were very vocal about the whole drought situation, policy and governance issue in the country, and Mandera to be precise, and the northern Kenya. in general. What is the situation? How can you assess the situation on the ground right now, Mushima, from the calls you're getting from during the campaign period and all that?
Thank you very much again for giving me this opportunity to be able to speak to this very important topic, which is actually very important for the lives of millions of people in northern Kenya, not just in northern Kenya, but even in the Horn of Africa region, which is actually battered by drought currently. Now, first of all, maybe why, drought is there, but why is it becoming a big issue, particularly in northern Kenya, where I come from? One of the reasons is that livestock, in the regions we are talking about, that is, when we talk of livestock, we are talking about cattle, sheep, goats, and other types of livestock, are the main economic lifestay of the people from that region. For example, a poor livestock farmer will be able to sell his livestock in order to pay school fees, or sell his livestock in order to pay some medical bill, or sell his livestock in order to buy food for the rest of the family, or sell the livestock in order to be able to pay even transport for him to be able to travel to Nairobi or do other type of chores. That is the context under which this drought has now come, and it has battered that main economic lifestay of the people in that region, that is the livestock. So we are talking of, for example, 5 seasons of poor rainfall. And when you're talking of 5 seasons, basically we have 2 seasons of rains in this country. We have long rains between March to May, March, April, and May, and then we have short rains in October, November, December. Now we are talking of the long rains and the short rains having been depressed in 2020, and the same short rains and long rains depressed in 2021. And now we are looking at the long rains have been depressed in 2022, and the projections are that the short rains we are expecting in October, November, December will also fail. To be depressed by 25%. Actually, So we are talking of 6 basically rainy seasons of failure of rainy seasons, and drought has actually now become, given the context I've just talked about, drought has actually become the main contributor to poverty in that region, because once you lose your livestock, you don't only lose lives of those livestock, you are losing your livelihoods, because that is the main livelihood option for the people in that region. So currently the situation is such that lots of livestock have died, and the few that have remained have actually moved far away from homes. They have moved way into Ethiopia, some are in Somalia, and when they are moving like this, families move not only with livestock, they even move with the children who are in school. So we're talking of even learning institutions being affected, because
disrupting the whole livelihood
of the people. The watering points have become now longer than they used to be, so women walk very long distances to collect water, some up to even more than 20 kilometers to collect a 20-liter jerrycan of water, from the nearest watering point.
That's supposed to suffice the whole family.
That's supposed to suffice the whole family, perhaps even for a whole week. So that is the context under which we are talking about, and that is why when we're talking about drought, then we are talking about all those other things which are related to that drought and its impact on the lives of the people in that region.
Wow.
So not only that, the largest, like now in the constituency where I come from, Mandera South, all the 5 wards speak of Shemper Fatuma, speak of Wargadud, speak of Kutulo, speak of the 2 well works. They are all affected. And we are talking of 220,000 people who are, some are in not so severe acute malnutrition, but children who are under 5 years are definitely, from the latest assessments that we have seen, the children under 5 are actually suffering severe acute malnutrition. And lactating women and elderly men and women are all suffering now because of the current drought.
Things are bad.
Things are really bad.
Murgor, let me just loop you in. 20 out of the 23 counties right now severely affected. Actually, the alarming stage, correct? According to the NDMA?
That is 10 are at the alarming phase.
10 at the alarming phase.
And then 10 at the alert phase.
Alert phase.
Yeah, that are likely to fall off.
To the alarm stage.
If nothing bad.
It's going to be done.
Yes, exactly.
You have moved and walked around some of these counties. For the sake of our audience, Mheshimiwa has painted a very good picture, particularly in his constituency where he's coming from. What about you? I understand yesterday you were in Turkana.
Yeah,
and,
precisely.
You saw some of those things. So paint for us a picture of what's really happening on the ground as well, for the sake of our audience.
Yeah, you know, and I thank you for asking that question, because it might be difficult for somebody to visualize and to understand how exactly drought could be affecting people. We are talking about people who had livestock now looking at the carcasses, which they were previously their forms of livelihood. And so that you can translate that, let me bring it back to the context of maybe somebody back here. Mm-hmm. If you lost your job, if you lost your means of livelihoods, how do you go back home? So if a man had gone to the fields, for instance, to take care of the livestock, if they've been separated from the family for almost a month or two, taking care of livestock, the families are deprived of the milk, they are deprived of the family fabric because the man has been away, and then this man comes back holding the bells of the cow, or rather the livestock that have perished. So number one is devastation. Think of the mental turmoil that is there. Think of the lack of the capacity to maybe provide. Picture that lady walking all those almost 20 kilometers in scorching sun, and you're trying to go and get water. First of all, you're weak, you have not eaten, your meal score has been reduced probably to 1 meal in 2 days, some cases, some even go to 3 days without meals. This is a reality on the ground. And then you're going to fetch water, 20 liters. As you're coming back, you're thirsty yourself. Probably by the time you're getting back home, the water is probably half. You look at malnutrition cases that have really gone high. We are talking of global acute malnutrition rates of 46%. Acceptable global acute malnutrition rate is 15%.
15%, yeah.
We are talking of 46%. We are talking about a mother who is, first of all, depreciated health-wise, but still needs to provide milk to the child. These are the realities on the ground. And so if you want to talk about them accessing food, and sometimes some people wonder, why can't they probably try to grow stuff? Why can't they even plan to harvest? So what do you do when you're in a terrain that cannot produce crops? One needs to get to the ground to appreciate the aridity of the soil and the fact that it's just rocks and a terrible terrain where nothing can grow. That is just the reality of things as is on the ground.
And you moved ahead and started an intervention of at least distributing 65 million shillings to at least 50,000 households?
And that Faisal, you're talking about just one of the sites. That's just Turkana.
Turkana alone?
Yes, but Kenya Red Cross has spread across the country. Yeah. If you're talking about cash intervention, 116,000 households have already been reached in previous interventions. 65 million is just the one.
An average of how much per household?
Around an average per household, 5,680. That is what was being given. And if you top up the amount of withdrawal charges from M-Pesa, like another 68, so it's an amount of 5,747.
It's supposed to take them for how long?
That is supposed to take them for a month. But again, it's important to notice that this was 3 months ago. We've just had our president highlighting the impact of the Ukraine effect, the global inflation, and the prices have doubled.
Wow. Hold it there. Mheshimiwa, drought was declared a national disaster by the former President Uhuru Kenyatta before he left office. Actually, I think it's 12 months right now, and so far only 2 billion shillings has been allocated or reserved for this disaster. You are active in the NGO field. I think maybe some of your voices were heard until such a move was made. Has it impacted in any way whatsoever?
Unfortunately, the impact from that 2 billion, and not only that, even a lot of other development agencies and donors and supporters have also chipped in quite some resources in that sector during that period. But given the nature of drought, in this country and in the region we're talking about, you know, it's something that once it's onset, it covers very huge areas and covers huge populations. Therefore, the 2 billion looks like just a drop in the ocean, depending, comparing to the sheer magnitude of the situation. And then this is the region which has really suffered what I may call a cyclic drought. You know, the people in this region are either preparing very hard to get out of drought like now, or they are preparing to get into one, or they are in the middle of one. And that is the nature of the drought in that region. It's a vicious cycle. And the impact keeps on magnifying because you have a drought this year, the intervention is not sufficient, a number of people are knocked off the livelihood curve. Next year, another drought comes, another set of people are knocked off the livelihood curve, and the cycle continues and continues and continues like that, such that the 2 billion we're talking about looks like just a drop in the ocean. But even if you talk to the people on the ground, they will tell you who has seen the 2 billions anyway. Has it ever been released? Or if it has been released, where has it gone? Most probably it has been released, most probably it has done something on the ground, but because of the sheer magnitude of the problem, it is not felt.
You have over 50 members of parliament coming from the counties, actually over 100 members of parliament coming from those regions, actually the 20 counties that have been affected. Have you had a meeting since you're swearing in, even during this induction, to try and see, can you possibly lobby and get something from the reserve fund of the government to try and address the problem?
Thank you very much. I think the pastoralist parliamentary group, we had our last meeting yesterday where we addressed majorly this question of drought and insecurity. We even issued a statement which has not been covered by many media houses, but we issued a statement, and we are a strong 105-member caucus group in Parliament, pastoralist parliamentary group. And we have come together as members of the 13th Parliament, and we are going to have our annual general meeting sometime in November, the first initial meeting to welcome new members and what have you. But the discussions we had yesterday is that we are definitely going to use our numbers, 105, you know, and it includes members of the Senate, members of the National Assembly, and also the members of the East Africa Legislative Assembly, and all the nominated members. And they are all passionate. They are all affected by this drought and many other problems affecting those regions, including insecurity. And we said we'll definitely use our numbers to support legislative agenda that will help the people and pastoralists from that region to be able to deal with this drought. Because, as I told you, drought is a cyclic issue now.
Immediate thing, Mheshimiwa, something that can at least probably act as an intervention almost immediately. Do you have something?
Yes.
We have a reserve plan as a country.
Yes.
Yes, of course. Honorable Chiralgei came out and say, walingia kapata only 93 million shillings peke yake in their account. We saw, I mean, government spending, I think, a couple of billions on the subsidies fertilizers.
Yeah, definitely.
That is good for people who are planting.
Definitely.
But again, you are being affected right now.
Definitely.
So that means we can get some allocations. Are you looking into that?
Definitely, we are looking into that, and that was part of the discussion that we had yesterday. And I'm happy, the clip you just played earlier, our president speaking to these issues, right, at the United Nations General Assembly meeting yesterday.
The biggest stage in the world.
The biggest, you know, forum in the world. And he had the plight of the people from this region and what the drought is doing to the region. And we are going to build on that when he comes back. And I know he's a president who's actually got a very soft heart for pastoralists. And we're going to have a sitting with him as members of the pastoralist parliamentary group so that we can have at least some kind of a... Right now, we may talk about trying to save lives and livelihoods, but at the end of the day, we'll need to have a long-term plan for that region.
They're going to come back to that, inshallah.
Okay.
I had one person saying the bottom up of the president, and nataka zile ng'ombe zimelala zianze kutembea sasa. That's the bottom.
I like that, yes,
Philip,
yes.
Sorry, Peter. Sorry.
It's fine. I get that a lot.
Yeah. Peter, 5,000 per family. Expected return for a whole month. I mean, and you distributed that 3 months back. So by now, I'm sure the people who are in the first phase of distribution, right now, they're also, again, in the list of the most needy, the most vulnerable right now. So actually, it's another cycle.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, so how it
so
works.
Is this move actually sustainable? What inspired this move? And for how long is it likely to go on?
Yeah, so you know how we need to look at it in the scope that it should be. You know, if you look at the cycle of disaster management, you will understand that there's a part of emergency response.
Yeah.
And first, when people are in such a situation that they are in now of dire need, the first thing that you're thinking about is saving their lives.
Saving lives, yeah.
So you want to save these lives so that you can be able to help them recover later. So the priority and the focus becomes saving lives. Hence the question of why are you giving that amount at that particular time? Because you want them to survive first. So you ask a very pertinent question that 5,000, is it sufficient? There is a mechanism that is used to determine the 5,000. There is, under the humanitarian standards, we have the do no harm principle, and we do the bare minimum for human survival, which is kilocalories that you require, even you yourself, for your consumption to survive, which is 2,100 kilocalories. So based on that, we have what we call a minimum expenditure basket that is developed to help us arrive at these figures. We don't just create figures out of the blue. So when you arrive at that figure, when you calculate what a household requires, we use a base of 6 persons per household. And then when you multiply that and you do for 30 days, then you do 50% of that. Because you're saying when somebody is in an alert phase or worsening, they can still have a way of earning, but you want to cushion them.
Yeah.
And that hence the 5,000. But as we speak right now, that is changing for the obvious reason that the costs have just rocketed. And that value has now been revised. When it would have been 5,000, they actually now need 10,000.
Wow.
And it's important for us also to understand that some of the interventions, because we might just be thinking about the 65 million for cash, but we are also doing water interventions. We are also doing cash for health, for example.
As in some countries also did food distribution.
Food distribution, yeah, 247,000 households. Actual food distribution, where markets have not been able to function. Forgetting not that we were just from an offtake, an animal offtake, a slaughter offtake, in partnership with the government of Kenya. Yeah. So there are a number of interventions that are layered, trying to just cushion, help, and bring these people back. But let it not be lost that we are all finding ourselves in a situation we did not anticipate. We did not anticipate 4 to 5 consecutive failed seasons.
Seasons of drought. Anyway, and the weatherman is predicting up to next year, February is when we should expect something. Gentlemen, allow me to please just take us on a break. Let's go pay our bills. But remember, you can also be part of the conversation. 0798 974747. That's our WhatsApp number. Just text us on WhatsApp. Ask your questions to Moshimiwa and Bonapita Murgor, who's inside the studio tonight, and they'll be able to answer your questions. Actually, when you come back from the break, I won't ask any questions from me. I'll only be taking questions from you. So let's pay our bills. These advertisements, zicheze, tupate mshahara. Siku tarehe back.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation. Verse of the day.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
ولا يأتل أولو الفضل منكم والسعة أن يؤتوا أولي القربى والمساكين والمهاجرين في سبيل الله وليعفوا وليصفحوا ألا تحبون أن يغفر الله لكم ألا تحبون أن يغفر الله لكم والله غفور رحيم.
Quote of the day. Imam Malik bin Anas said, I am but a man. I make mistakes sometimes, and I am correct sometimes. So examine my opinions and accept anything that agrees with the book and sunnah, and leave anything that does not agree with the book and sunnah.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Thank you so much. Rafat Khalalio says, I congratulate you, Mheshimiwa Haro, Mheshimiwa Kore, and would like to hear your inputs towards mitigation over the drought situation as you had been on the forefront in the NGO world. As you're answering this question, Mheshimiwa, I'd like to hear more on long-term solutions, because we need to put it against the backdrop of these counties that are currently facing drought are the same counties that when heavy rains come, they're the same counties facing floods. Right?
Yeah, true.
So please, just, let's answer first, Khalaido, as your...
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. And maybe one of the mitigation, I will repeat what my colleague said earlier. That is, the immediate concern is, first of all, to save lives right now, because a lot of lives are at stake. Yeah. And the livelihoods of those people are also at stake. When we talk of lives, we're talking about the lives of the people, and we're talking about livelihoods, we're talking about their livestock. So how do we save, even if we cannot save all the livestock, how do we save the breeding stock so that when the rains come, we still have some livestock that can be able to breed and give offspring to the future, livestock. That is one point. The other point is, right now, we have a lot of boreholes which are not usable because of salinity of water in that region. So the capacity of the boreholes that we have in that region might not be fully utilized, because quite a number, almost 30–40% of the boreholes in most parts of that region, because of the nature of the soils in that region, are saline, too salty for human consumption. Yeah. So one mitigation that I think needs to be addressed is the question, how do we treat this water so that it becomes sweet water, fresh water, so that all the full potential of water resources in that region are able to be capitalized. Wow. How do we use technologies, for example, adopt agricultural technologies like drip irrigation to grow, even if it is pasture for some livestock, or even if it's some food for homesteads in that part of the world. Yeah. How do we use, for example, solar pumps to pump some of these boreholes which are unable to run because maybe diesel engine has run out, or electricity or fuel has become too expensive for the generators. You see, because those electricity and generators are actually another source of those fossil fuels, which also contribute to the whole whatever. So how do we come up with that? And most importantly, we need a contingency fund now, and that is where we can now use groups like we've talked about, the Caucus, the pastoralist parliamentary group, to push the government to be able to have some kind of an contingency fund to be able to address the question of drought in that region.
Are we looking at any potential timelines for what you're saying? Like, for example, what is within your realm?
Some of these things are actually long-term, and some are short-term. Matters of saving lives are short-term, and they can happen like from yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, these are things that cannot wait. Saving lives and saving livelihoods of these people are not things that can wait. So we want our president, the moment he comes back, he can declare another drought disaster.
State of emergency.
Instead of emergency. So that we can be able to talk to friends, we can be able to talk to donors, we can be able to talk to well-wishers. Because a lot of people now might be willing to help generate funds.
Which I was coming to that, to just preempting it. So I'm going to ask you to hold it there, because there's actually a whole question about that, right?
Yeah.
So just hold it there. Yeah.
Maybe what I'll finish up with is the question of cash. Intervention, grant that my friend has talked about. Even where I come from in Mandera, for example, there are quite a number of agencies, including Red Cross, which is also present in that part of the world, which are helping people in giving some kind of a multipurpose cash grant. And I think this multipurpose cash grant is the best way to go about it right now, because the future the past policy of, you know, putting foodstuff on lorries, you know, beans, rice, maize, sugar, cooking oil. There are a lot of other expenses. By the time the government goes through the procurement process to identify the trucks, to identify where they will buy the maize, a lot of damage would have been done by the drought. But this question of giving some multipurpose cash grant gives these pastoralists also an opportunity. Once you give them whatever little you have given them, it will give them an option. You know, I told you, they sell livestock to meet their many other expenses that they have. So if you give them their cash grant, they can be able to buy food, or they can be able to pay school fees, or they can be able to pay bill for somebody who's sick in the hospital. So that, I think, is the quickest way of reaching people, because there is a lot of mobile telephone money transfer services now, and a lot of connectivity in that part of the region. The quickest way, the fastest way, the easiest way of reaching those people right now is through multipurpose cash grant.
Interesting. Peter, I'm sure you guys have worked with county governments, right? You've collaborated with them. So, Fuadi, shout out Fuadi. Thank you so much, Fahad, for watching. Fahad says, with the county government in place, we shouldn't be talking about water shortages, maybe pastures. Every village should be having boreholes by now, something which Mheshimiwa talks to again. Say, growing fodder grass should be the next priority. That's according to Fuadi. From your movement in the regions, right, is whatever Fuadi saying feasible in that particular region?
Yeah, and I think it's good to have people who have a thought process like Fuadi, because like I talked about the disaster management continuum, there is a time when you go to development and mitigation, reconstruction, rehabilitation, then you're trying to develop. So if some areas can be saved as rangelands, identified, then we have a fodder production and management, and then even post-harvest crop management trainings, for instance, for people. These are some of the mitigation measures that can be adapted. And Red Cross is, people know Red Cross for emergency response, but there's a lot of other developmental work. Like, for instance, right now, we are thinking about anticipatory approaches. Anticipatory approaches in the sense that how do we, now we are facing climatological related hazards, like the floods and the drought. So can we predict these things? If we can predict them, what early actions can we take to avert or mitigate against the loss of life, for instance? So, and you will find that some of these things, like he has highlighted, are early actions that can be taken. For instance, fodder distribution or prepositioning of fodder for what we are calling priority stock. And Mheshimiwa alluded to that and said, okay, we may not be able to take off your 1,000 fleet of flock, but how do we prioritize priority stock that we can have a lean stock that can carry these people maybe to some distance? About the issue of water, for instance, and this takes a lot of collective effort. Now, we may not have a straight cut answer to that, because we can confirm that at times you think you can drill a borehole and you get water here. And unfortunately, when you drill, he can confirm that. Either you have to go too deep, like right now with the 5 fail season, you have to go deeper. Then
The
when you
water
get, yes,
base,
the water table.
level, water
And
table.
then by the time you get to the water, you need to desalinate it. How expensive is it to desalinate? I want to relate to even a situation in Kargi where there were boreholes that were drilled, and you might have seen a story on TV where that water was not fit for human consumption. So there are those other dynamics also that complicate the situation kind of. But should such actions be attempted? Should efforts be made towards reconstructing or constructing strategic water infrastructure? Absolutely. And Red Cross even has been at the forefront to do some of this work. We prioritize water pans, we do desilting of water pans, we do drilling of boreholes, working with communities to see prioritize critical infrastructure. So a number of those things are possible. It just needs a lot of collaborated efforts. But again, to underscore, the unfortunate thing is, let's realize also that our communities are nomadic in nature.
Yes.
The pastoralists are nomadic in nature, though we must allude to the fact that with the current trend, we are beginning to see a trend of people beginning to have some settlements. So that even if the men are going to go far to fend,
They can always come back.
they can always come back, and their wives and their little ones are left in a certain place. So probably that begins
So that means there's some aspects of settlement coming in.
yeah, and
so
that
maybe you can think of other ventures.
absolutely, that might make that possible to see, like, now, how do we invest into water infrastructure? How do we construct water catchment areas that might benefit these communities?
As you were speaking, you saw me just trying to scroll. I mean, I'm getting a lot of feedback, but in the interest of time, allow me just to read one, and then you just go into the final round of questions, which I really like this last part of the question. But again, Mohammed Qaras says, the current drought in the north in Kenya is devastating the lives of pastoralists. Tens of thousands of livestock is lost. The mainstay of herders' pasture water is depleted. National government and the respective counties should put up measures to mitigate their situation. From the feedback that is coming in, it is clear that people are actually concerned. People and Kenyans and actually the whole of North of Africa is actually concerned and talking about the situation. And this is the most important part. So how do they take part in trying to intervene or solving this current situation that we are in?
Yeah.
I'm going to start with you, Mheshimiwa.
Very good question. And I think we're just talking about food and how to save lives and what have you. But there are so many other attendants as impact of drought. For example, it is also during this time of scarcity that a lot of conflicts happen between communities. For example, the herders who move with the animals to areas where perhaps people are blessed a bit and they have some pasture, and then those owners of those lands come up in arms, telling them, no, we've heard about the Kitui.
The scarcity of resources, basically.
Exactly,
So
exactly. People fight over it. And therefore, one thing that communities can do, for example, is also, and it's also a request to other Kenyans who are blessed, who have got pasture, who have got need to be patient with pastoralists who are now going through very difficult times, so that there can be some kind of a mediation between those people who have and those who don't have, just to make them help them pass through this phase of difficulty. So that process of mediation, making peace with their neighbors, and making peace with other Kenyans, and also institutions of government, like, for example, the conservancies, like in Laikipia, for example, and national reserves or parks, where pastoralists are now driving into those areas with their livestock, and they are having a lot of conflicts with the government institutions in charge of those. So there is that human to human, discussions and relations that need to happen, so that these things can go on for. And then the other thing that I think the communities can do, and although the government also needs to come in, is the fact that we have a huge number of pastoralist dropouts. People who had animals, and they used to have the animals, they never used to bother anybody, they never used to depend on relatives, they never used to depend on NGOs, but now they've lost livestock and they have come back to the peri-urban and urban areas. Yeah. They need to be supported. They need to be given all the necessary support that is found. And unfortunately, and I'm saying unfortunately, particularly on the parts that on the areas that I come from in the northeast, and Mandera in particular, we are bordering a very difficult neighbor. And we have a bulging youth population. And I always say, this bulging youth population, if not managed well, and if they get frustrated the way they are getting frustrated with lack of opportunities, hunger, illiteracy, and all those problems they are facing, then it's a ticking time bomb. Because in Maslow's law of hierarchy, there are some needs that needs to be satisfied.
Yes.
If you don't satisfy them, people will find alternative ways of satisfying those needs. That's why you'll find these youths perhaps being attracted by bad groups across the border on the other side. And that's how an issue that starts as a small internal problem becomes a national security problem to the whole nation. So we need people to be able to help those people who are dropping out of pastoralism, so that they can have a soft landing. I know it is difficult for everybody. Everybody is suffering. But if those people become frustrated, frustration, they say, leads to aggression. And those people need, and then the youths need to be given opportunities, and that's where the government also needs to come in. I wish the executive, including the president, brings a legislative to parliament on the Hustlers Fund as quickly as possible. Because even from the regions where we come from, we have a lot of people at the bottom of the pyramid who can be supported by that Hustlers Fund. And some of these youths I'm talking about can easily benefit from that Hustlers Fund despite the difficulties. But at the end of the day, we need to have some kind of a hybrid where some people can keep livestock, but then a lot of our people need to graduate towards alternative livelihoods. People can start getting into service sector, transport sector,
other means of
livelihood.
Then they should be supported.
Exactly, and they should be supported on that.
Thank you. Peter, I mean, you have a lot of experience in this. Talking from the common Mwananchi's perspective, what can I do as a media practitioner? What can I do as a Mwananchi to try and help the Kenya Red Cross and the government by extension to try and mitigate the current drought situation?
Thank you, Faisal. And first of all, thank you because you're already doing something by creating a platform to help us show somebody who's not been able to see to probably hear and get to fathom from some of us who've experienced. It's important to, before we ask you to do something, it's important for people to know what we're already doing. 872,000 households that we've already reached out with through our own initiatives. It's like a drop in the ocean. The cost is high, but at least we've reached these people. 247,000 people given food distribution that we've been able to intervene to. Another 116,000 households that we've been able to support with cash and voucher assistance. That we are trying to piece the pieces together. Now with that, is it enough? Are there people still in need? We are seeing the needs increase. I like that you underscored a fact at the beginning that really these guys have been receiving 5,000 and we are stopping when there is the need to keep them going. So Red Cross is now looking at a situation whereby we are prioritizing 1.2 million people that we need to support. Because you've seen the statistics, 4.35
million by October.
But Red Cross is giving itself a challenge and saying, can we prioritize 1.2 million? We need assistance to support these people. And why 1.2? Around 120,000 households that we would like to support with direct food, where logistically it might be challenging for markets to be properly operational, because cash assistance thrives on functionality of markets. We are thinking about another 130,000 households supported with more cash transfers, so that at least they can be able to be cushioned for some time. We are looking about 300,000 households that need to be supported to access healthy water, clean and healthy drinking water. We are looking at about 50,000 households that need to be supported to recovery, to restore their livelihoods. At least the most vulnerable, how can we help them to start having a hope to get back on their feet and to move on? How can we start helping communities so that children can start going back to school, they can start having a hope to live? Think about yourself. If, let's use the COVID pandemic for instance, when we were jobless, when people had to go home, you felt that pressure simply because you had no choice. But you could have tried to piece up together a wage and this and that. These people are down there, they may not have an option when they've lost their livelihoods. So Red Cross is at a position where we are trying to see how do we get everyone engaged. We have the legs to go. We might need the means from the people who do not have the legs to go for one reason or the other. Probably your work settings does not allow you to go there. Many other dynamics might make it challenging for you. Some of us who are capable of going, we might be capable of going, but we may not have the means to go, you know. So we are yet to give out, and I know we will be given proper direction on how well-wishers or people who may want to say, like that question that came forth. I want to support all this. I'm a doctor. I can help. Yes. So that at least we can start reducing now the gap, and we can start seeing. And there are already people. We want to thank. Kenya Red Cross expresses gratitude to a number of organizations, business communities that have come together and have brought some donations and said, we don't know what to do with this, but please use it, whatever little. Some have brought clothes, some have brought food parcels, some have given money, and so we are open to say we are willing to work together, we are willing to walk this journey so that at least we can support our brothers and sisters who are feeling it much more. I know we are all feeling it, but who are feeling it much more and don't have options. Wow,
wow, amazing. And honestly speaking, I don't even know what I can add on top of what has already been said by my seniors right here in the panel. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I mean, that's an amazing closing remarks.
Thank you very much.
Honestly, I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say. Abad, what's there to be added? I mean, I just like to know, for example, Moshimo, if somebody who has a legal background and can volunteer in putting up a petition or putting up, let's say, a bill together, where can he reach the pastoralist caucus? Please
bring it on. Bring it on. We have a lot of options. The petitions, we can
you can just drop it in parliamentary.
We can do it. No, you can even do it through me. I'll be happy to front it at the
probably email address that you could share.
Yes, I will share. Do you want me to share it?
Yes, you can just say it for those who are watching right now.
For those who are watching, then you can send it to my email address, abdul.haro@gmail.com. All in small caps. abdul.haro@gmail.com.
Amazing.
Yep.
Thank you.
Maybe just maybe just to close with, or rather to put it clearly, that those who feel like they would like to assist, Kenya Red Cross, we have our branches and offices across the 47 counties.
Thank you.
Feel free to visit any of our offices. Here in Nairobi, we have a branch at the fire station near Wakulima Market. We have our main offices at South Sea. And then across your counties, wherever you are, if you ask for offices. If you ask for a Kenya Red Cross office, you'll be able to go there. But we encourage you to make sure that you visit the office itself and you get the representatives inside there. Talk to you ask for what we call the county coordinator. Our county offices are managed by county coordinators.
Oh, finally, one final point. I would like to thank the Horizon TV for giving me this platform and opportunity to be able to speak to Kenyans on this very important agenda. And I'd also like to thank my constituents for having given me the opportunity to be able to speak and represent them in Parliament and on these matters. And I'd also like to thank all the development actors and NGOs working particularly in my constituency. I know Red Cross is doing a good job there, Save the Children is doing a good job there, Danish Refugee Council is doing a good job there, Action Against Hunger is doing a good job there. I can't remember all of them and mention them, including the National Drought Management Authority. The Mandera chapter. The county government of Mandera is doing a wonderful job, especially in repairing the broken pumps and water points, and even drilling more boreholes in areas where people are having a lot of difficulties. National government is trying its best. I think I'll thank all of those people and hope that inshallah God brings rain very soon, and we'll do whatever we can be able to do to be able to mitigate this problem. I say there is hope, and inshallah there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Very soon, inshallah, right?
Inshallah.
Thank you so much, guys. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I mean, guys, I don't know if there's anything else to add on top of that. You've had it for yourself. Take part in it. Take part in it. I mean, if you want to do something today, then, I mean, I don't know who you're waiting for. Nothing will be done. They are doing a lot with their 4 hands, but I'm sure if I add 2 more hands, it's going to be 6 hands. If you add yours, it's going to be 8 and 12, and, you know, before you know it, the rest of these other counties will be helping the actors to try and mitigate and intervene this current situation.
Thank you.
My name is Faisal Kassim, and this has been the Library Talk. See you, inshallah, next week.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks so
much.
much. Jazakallah khair. Asante sana.
Shukran.
Peter, thank you so much, brother. Asante sana.
Thank you.
That's good enough.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.